rising, lineups posted, shades on, lawn chairs, parents posted, seeds in the cheek, dreams in the dirt, cleats in the cage, stains on the shirt. This ain't no highlight reel or fast takes, just game talk, raw cuts and grass stains. From the backfields to the big dreams, we're talking shop with the real teams. It's Spittin Seeds powered by cold weather bats, where the story's alive and the culture's intact. So zip up the bag, lace up the spikes, and settle in. We're on the mic.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Spittin Seeds, the podcast for baseball families, players, coaches, and really anyone who has tripped over a pile of gear in their hallway. I am Michael, joined as always by Nick. And do we have a loaded Memorial Day episode for you all today? First off, happy Memorial Day to everyone out there.
Yeah, and this weekend kind of is the unofficial kickoff to the summer baseball. Hotel bags, tournament wristbands, anything you can really think of, more so the energy drinks, because I'm a big Monster guy, and way too many hours logged on I-75. But we are excited.
Way too many hours in I-75 going north and south, too many hours spent in the air. But really, before we dive in, we want to take a second to acknowledge really what today and what this weekend is about. It is Memorial Day, as everyone does know. And while we are talking baseball, we do not lose sight of the men and women who gave their lives in service so that we can even enjoy weekends like this and talk baseball like we are doing. So much respect to all of those families, and thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, today's episode, I feel it's a little bit about everything. We're going to talk about high school playoffs. We're going to start, quite frankly, who's going to win, who's not, the sleepers, who could make some noise in June. It's going to be interesting. Again, just like Mike said, happy Memorial Day. We're glad to, do this on Memorial Day. It's a special holiday, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
And speaking of noise, we do have a little life update that we'll get into in just a little bit that is going to bring a whole new kind of chaos to one of our households, and we'll get into that in a few.
You're definitely not going to want to miss it.
We are also teasing our latest Patreon post that did come out today on Memorial Day. It's called Avoiding Burnout, Building a Summer That Actually Lasts. Because listen, we know that this stretch can be exciting, but definitely can be exhausting, not only for players, but for parents as well. We have seen personally too many kids burn out before really the 4th of July. And this post lays out how to build a summer that's productive, but even more so sustainable.
Yeah, and wrap up the show. We're going to keep it super light, share some, favorite summer ball memories outside of, stats, trophies, stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, that's really what matters, right? These memories that we create.
Right. So whether you are on the road to a tournament, you are grilling out some hot dogs, some burgers, things like that, weather is starting to cooperate just a little bit, or are you just catching your breath from another jam-packed baseball week? We are glad that you are here. Let's jump in, starting with the Michigan high school baseball playoffs, and really who we think has a shot to raise a trophy this month coming in June. Okay, so we're going to take the next segment here of our show to touch a little bit on the Michigan high school baseball playoffs that are upcoming. Obviously, as everyone knows, Cold Weather Bats is the premier destination for Michigan high school baseball. But here at Spittin Seeds, we would be crazy if we didn't want to touch base on this as well. We're going to touch on what makes the playoffs different. The top teams that we feel might be you might want to keep an eye out for in each division, and really some key factors to win in the playoffs. So let's kind of start first. Let's start first with what makes the high school playoffs different. Quite a bit of different things are going to now come into play, whether it's the speed of play, the energy, the pressure, the drama, things like that. Nick, as a coach, as a player, previously, obviously not now, what really gets amped up in your mind here?
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure, on, coaches, players to, execute when the moment comes, right? When you're in a regular season game, and it's okay if you miss a bunt, right? It's okay if I miss my pitch and accidentally leave it over the middle for a single. Like, this is when it starts mattering, right? We can't miss those spots. We got to execute on defense. We got to execute when it matters. Same with coaches, can I make a steal on this catcher who's got a really good arm? When is the time to do that? When is it time to bolt? There's so many scenarios that happens, and we really gotta find a way to execute when the time comes, and that's what makes you a good baseball team when it comes to playoffs.
I know for myself, not a high school coach, but being able to be a travel coach and getting into those games where you're now playing in bracket play, it's the same concept in a way where everything is ratcheted up. You have those scenarios where players are going to press a little bit more, and as a coach, what are you going to do to really prepare your team to be successful in those scenarios? And really, for me, it's the practices leading up to that, right? So what are you doing to have that sort of environment with your team where you are putting that pressure onto them? So when you do get in that scenario, you have infield in, winning run on third base, you are able to count on your shortstop that gets a ground ball hit to them to be able to field it and make the clean throw to home. Where to that shortstop and the other 7 players behind the pitcher, those players are not nervous. They're ready for the ball to be hit to them. They're wanting the ball hit to them, and really are taking that pressure and thriving off of it. That's in my mind what you have to do to be ready to be successful in playoffs. You can't just have the best team. When you get to that point, this is when you start seeing those teams that have been juggernauts all year that went through the motions. If their coach didn't prepare them those days in practice, they're not going to be there in East Lansing, and they're not going to be there in the final game on Sunday that are competing for those trophies.
There's a lot of good teams, obviously, that we've covered throughout the state of Michigan. It's one thing to have talent. It's another thing to play as a family, play in the moment, and execute in them. Those are the teams that you see year in and year out make a run for a state title. Is they understand the culture, they know when to execute, they make the plays, make it routine, they know how to pitch. We can go on and on about that, but those are the teams that you constantly see making a run for a state title.
So let's go on into teams that we feel in each division are starting to peak at maybe the right time, or ones that we feel are really to be ones that we're looking out for or come going to, the state title. Okay, so for those of you that have been with us the entire season, back in the beginning of April, back on April 2nd, we released our state title picks with cold weather bats. Each of us within our staff put out who we thought D1 through D4, the title winners would be, as well as a sleeper for an overall pick. So what we'll do is we're kind of going to go through this. We'll go D1 to D4. We'll get our thoughts and kind of take it from there. So D1, we don't really have a lot to probably debate over here, potentially. Nick and I, we both picked Bay City Western as our Division I champs. For those that have been following, like we've discussed, Bay City Western, up until this last week, has been number 1 in the Cold Weather Bats Super 25. So they've been a complete team. They have really dismantled almost every single team they've come into playing. And it really hasn't been close. The pitching has been outstanding. The offense has really picked it up in weeks, consistently. And most recently, Macomb Dakota has overtaken them in our Super 25. So, Nick, any thoughts as to, is this who you want to say? Are you going out on a limb? And I guess it's not really going out on a limb, but are you still riding with Bay City Western here for your Division I choice?
Yeah, I think Western is still the number one option. I do think it's a close, it's kind of like 1A and 1B, right? Like, I think Dakota is very, very close to there. I think Dakota has a slight edge when it comes to pitching. But I do think offensively, Bay City Western probably has an edge there. So I'd be very curious. Like, I don't know how the bracket necessarily lines up right now, but if it was Dakota and Western in like a finals, that would be unbelievable. But again, I don't know what the bracket's going to line up like, but I think Dakota and Western are your two, we'll say, favorites.
I think I have been extremely impressed with talking with the Dakota players, really just talking with them. It made me really question if this is the right choice to ride with Bay City Western here. And so really, this is going to be a fantastic matchup whenever, if this ever does happen, where these two are going to play off or play against each other in the playoffs. Looking at the bracket here, it looks like they will match up in East Lansing if that does come to fruition. It just won't be in the championship. It would be in the semifinal that would take place on June 13th. So looking at it as well, Rochester Adams is another really good school, as well as Hudsonville. Division I, like we've talked about throughout all of our roundtables, there is so much parity within Division I. Don't forget, you have Jenison, Brother Rice, Grosse Pointe South. You have all of these schools that really you could look at it and say, yeah, they could win Division I. So definitely a lot of very good baseball to come for all of those teams. We'll move right on into our Division II. Nick, you went out on a limb with Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and I went with New Boston Huron. We take a look at rankings, and both of these have been Super 25 teams for the entirety of the year. St. Mary's has been up and down with their record a bit in the Catholic League, and New Boston Huron has really rolled through a lot of their games with a 24-5 record down there in their conference as well. So for these two teams, along with Forest Hills Eastern, you maybe throw Spring Lake. Standish Sterling has been a team that has really dominated as well. Where do you see Division II potentially going, or are you sticking with your pick of the Eaglets?
There's a couple teams that I've been super impressed with throughout the year. I think Macomb Lutheran North is one that, I mean, they are an offensive juggernaut. Like, the fact that they can hit to top 1 through 9 to all fields with power, like, was very impressive to see. I saw them a couple times. I think Notre Dame Prep has a chance there. They got some really good arms, led by Drake and led by Henry over there. I'll be very curious how they end up. I do still think that St. Mary's is the team to beat. 20-10 record, but at the same time, like, who they have played. I mean, they play a Division I schedule. They go 20-10, and then we'll call it a Division I type schedule. Like, I think that they have a lot more experience, I would say, than more so these other teams, right?
Yeah, completely.
But I would not
they're
be
playing
surprised.
against the best of the best.
Right.
They're going up every single game against the best.
Yeah, and the other team I actually think would be a sleeper would be Williamston. Ryan Orr over there, who I played with against actually for all my life at Kalamazoo. Ryan's a really good coach. Like, he knows his stuff. He knows how to get these boys ready to go. We talked about executing when the game matters. Like, he has a team that could execute at any given second. So that would be another team that I would say, sleeper wise, I could see them making a run.
So unlike Division I, Division II, if you have St. Mary's and New Boston Huron going up against each other, that's not going to be happening until the championship game. So definitely could be a very good matchup if we get there in Division II. Now, Division III, let's take a look at that. If we go on into our Division III picks, I picked Hemlock, and Nick, you went with Detroit Edison. I have been really impressed, with Ann Arbor Green Hills. I think there are going to be a team that is going to have really the arms and the offense to get to that final game in East Lansing. 32-6 have competed in every single game and really dominated throughout the entirety of the season. You, with your Detroit Edison pick, how do you feel where you are at with that one? You want to make any changes?
I like Edison getting pretty far. I think they'll make it to the quarters. I don't think that they have quite the roster they've had in the past to probably make that championship run. I do, however, like Kalamazoo Christian. I think they've done an excellent job this year, both defensively with the sticks and on the mound. I believe they're 25-4 right now. I like what they've done. I'll be curious how they kind of fit in too. I also have seen Liggett play a couple times now. I think Liggett is one of those teams, like we were talking about St. Mary's, right? They play a higher level schedule. I think it's, they were pushed a little bit, and I think that they're going to come out and make a solid run at state titles as well.
Something to keep an eye on as we take a look at Division III. Go right on into Division IV here. I had Hackett Catholic as my choice. A good team that has had a pretty good year, 14-6. Nick, you went with Rudyard. What's your thoughts? Are you looking to stick with that? Any changes that you want to be making here with our Division IV pick?
I still like Rudyard. However, it's tough to look away from what Portland St. Patrick has done this year. 27-1 is absolutely ridiculous. I think they have the right coaching staff in place to kind of finish the year strong. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't know how many times this has happened, but how many times have we seen a state playoff team go in there with 1 loss or 0 losses and actually come out on top? That would be something that worries me. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to look away from what Portland St. Patrick has done. I also do think that Plymouth Christian over there with Perk, who's a really close friend, he's done a great job at kind of revamping Plymouth Christian. I think they're a team to beat. That is my take on it. I really don't know who I'm going to pick for Division IV, if I'm being honest with you, but I like Plymouth Christian and I like St. Patrick.
I can't add anything to that, really. You took everything I was going to say, so yeah. I will leave it with just that. Follow-up question to you here. Take your Cranbrook team out of it. Mm-hmm. You've seen all different types of teams this year, all different divisions. What is one player that you would want if your team had a bases loaded situation with this hitter up in the plate with 2 outs? Who are you picking that you are saying, I need you to make a clutch hit here with this to win us the game?
I think without a doubt it's Flip Waters. I don't think there's a question out there. I think Flip has that clutch gene in him. I've seen it from his brother many times. I think it runs in the family, and no offense, Bino, but Flip's really goddamn good. Cannot say that enough. I think Flip has what it takes to play at a super high level. And I think that's the guy in any situation. I'd be like, all right, this guy's going to get us a hit. We're going to win.
All right, that'll wrap us up for our high school baseball playoff talk. With that said, of course, best of luck to Nick and Cranbrook this upcoming week as you guys take on Notre Dame Prep in your pre-district. And who knows, maybe you guys will get out of the district and keep things moving on. Speaking of things that are coming up in the near future, we have some huge news from the Spittin Seeds family. If you've seen this maybe on Nick's personal social medias or even on our Cold Weather Bats Twitter this past week, some big news has come out. Nick, I will just let you take it from here.
Yeah, so we've been trying for a baby here for a while, and we got a little girl on the way. So I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna have to explore that softball life instead of the baseball life, but we'll get there.
Well, congratulations. Obviously,
Thank you.
I have one of each. You guys see behind me here. If you're watching on YouTube, I got pictures of myself with my son Daniel, but we do have a baby girl that maybe if you've heard in previous episodes, she's been on her play mat. Catherine, she's 4 months old in about a week, handful of days here. So you're in for it. Let's just say I'm gonna
be so soft.
Let's just say you won't be getting much sleep around the holidays and in 2026.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong.
All right. So I guess, are you nervous, excited? How are you? How are you feeling right now? I know it's early.
Yeah, so me and my wife talked about this because obviously we really wanted to do being completely transparent. So we were excited, but a little, oh man, I wish it was a boy. But at the end of it, we are super excited. We are both nervous because obviously there's not enough books that you can read in the entire world to prepare you for being a father or being a mother. So we are super excited. We got a couple names we've been throwing out there, so we will see what happens when she comes out.
I can say as a parent, and even I mean we said this numerous times on our podcast here. We openly admit we don't know everything. We are openly wanting to learn as much as possible. But what I can say is I still don't know everything. I think we're doing a fairly good job with Daniel. He just had his last day of his first year of preschool, and well, the teacher said he's smart, so can't
Hey,
complain about that. He's moving forward into. They said he's good. He can go right on into the 3-year-old
oh
preschool
my
class. And
God,
we're like,
look at that.
are we sure this is the same child we're talking about now? So I guess are you going to be getting a Spittin Seeds onesie made for the little one now? That
I
has to be
feel
the
like
next step.
that has to be a thing, right? It has to be.
It has to be. I mean, this is a challenge to Brian Metallic over at G Brand. We need some
Yeah,
Spittin
we need some
Seeds
onesies.
onesies. We need
Make it
some
happen.
onesies.
Brian will hook
So
us up. He's the man. He's got
he
this.
definitely will. And if you're out there listening and you have some insights for Nick, or I guess for myself, because I have 2 under 3 right now. Shoot us some insight. We would love to get your thoughts. And uh, like I said, Nick, you're not going to be sleeping much in the 2026 year, so get as much sleep in as possible now.
You know me. I like my sleep.
All right, so let's go on and move on into our Patreon topic that we had for the week. And really, this is centered around avoiding burnout. So, whether if you are a high school player that is now wrapping up your high school season, or you are going into really the thick of summer baseball as the weather is going to get warmer here, we like to kind of think that Memorial Day is really when Michigan baseball families are about to start the real grind. So for that, you have hotel weekends, you have coolers stuffed with energy drinks, you have gear in every room of your house you haven't cleaned in weeks because you have been going nonstop as a player, as a family. Really, it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's hard for all of us to keep up with that. And for us as players, as coaches, as parents, we acknowledge that, and we took some time and put together this post where we talk about how to really avoid burnout. So really, burnout it starts now. It doesn't start in August. What you do now is really what is going to help your child, if you're the parent or if you're the player. This is what's going to help you be able to have a successful season. So really more. It doesn't mean better. And Nick, I know for you as a coach, this is one thing that you stress a lot with your players. We've seen it from the professionals we've had come into our facility. Doing more isn't going to get you to being better faster.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before in an earlier episode, but like we've seen how many pro baseball players come through our place now, and we've seen them constantly. They take 3 or 4 swings. If it feels great, if it feels off, who else? They break it down and then they go into their next 3 or 4 swings. But I think that's a major point to it. Like it's not about just getting in here and I don't know if you're a pitcher throwing a full 50 pitch bullpen and trying to work on stuff or hitting in the cage for 100 swings. Like it's just not productive, right? It causes the burnout. And I think that's why we wrote this article. And I think it's a different perspective for most people.
Yeah, and really a great thought with that, like you just touched on with some of the players we've had come in, and like you said, they only take a handful of swings and or pitches and they get out of there. It's the exact same thing on a grander scale for a player or for a team. You don't, and frankly, you shouldn't be on the field for 45 straight days or 12 weekends in a row. I know that majority of families are within one of these Facebook groups where we're going to see it in the upcoming weeks. Hey, my son's off, wants to play another weekend. Get your son a break. He doesn't need to go every single weekend. He's not trying to chase the other players on his team that are doing so. It's not going to make him better if he's going every single weekend. You really do need to build in those rest weekends to not only allow your child to be a child, but to have time to not create bad habits.
I mean, I've seen it plenty of times. There are teams out there that play 100 games in a year, like I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, focus on training, focus on the little things, focus on the mental aspect, the weightlifting. I mean, how many kids do we see in our facility where kids come in and they're undersized, right? And they wonder why they're not hitting the ball farther, or they're not making, they're not making contact on some higher velos. Like, hit the weight room, Why can't I do this? Figure out the mental side of it. There's a lot of other things that you can do rather than playing 100 games a year.
Well, the biggest thing too, like you just touched on, the mental fatigue is far more greater than the physical fatigue. As a player, as a coach, or as a parent, the kids are going to check out upstairs first, right? So if you're a parent listening and you're not there mentally, if you have a 9-to-5 job, if you're not there mentally, you are absolutely done. And it's the same thing as a kid. If you are going every single day, every single week, you are going to eventually check out mentally, because you're just going to be so mentally fatigued that there's nothing left, right? You need to have those days to recover, whether it's, it's Memorial Day weekend, out at the pool. I know the weather's not super cooperative today, but out at the pool, playing other sports, hanging out with friends, shooting baskets in the driveway with dad. Things like that is how you are able to build up your battery faster, so you are able to, when you are on the field, have your entire battery filled, so you are able to give 100%. And really, you can reframe the work as play, right? You can let the kids have some practice in their backyard. You don't need to be going to a field every single time. There's ways that every single player can get things done at home, whether it's in the backyard, in the basement, in the garage. There's numerous ways that a player can get that work in. And it is good to get a little bit, whether it's 10 minutes in every single day, but it doesn't need to be, full intent all day, every single day.
Kind of, I'll say the saying that me and you always kind of talk about is, being the best 12U player doesn't really matter if you hate the game by the time you're 14 or 15,
No, it's always been so obvious that we could see at 12 years old, that player is so good, but that parent is having him go every single weekend. And I have examples of players that I've coached that I told parents, I said, you cannot have your son going every single weekend, right? In youth baseball, you don't play every single weekend. And if you have your child going and doing extra, whether it's the player throwing when he's not supposed to, or just getting too much, getting overworked, by the time they're going to be a junior or a senior, they're going to plateau, and they aren't going to continue the development as the other kids are going to be doing. So definitely a great topic. Make sure, if you aren't subscribed to our Patreon, that you go on and take a look at it. It's on your screen here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, wherever you get your podcast, that's going to be found at www.patreon.com/coldweatherbats. We've got a full breakdown of this over on our Patreon, Avoiding Burnout, building a summer that actually lasts. Check it out if you want to have some practical tools for staying healthy and happy all summer, whether you're a player or a parent. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. You know how every summer you start noticing little trends where stuff that's suddenly everywhere, stuff that's quietly killing, whether it's the vibe or the stuff that we wish more teams were doing. That moves us right on into our next segment. That is our official stock up and stock down of summer baseball edition. Really, we're not going to have any filters. We're not going to sugarcoat things. It's really going to be what we're liking and what we're really seeing that we're kind of over already. And Nick, there is a lot of different ways we can take this.
Oh yeah. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. There's so much stuff.
So here's some things. I'll start with this. I'll start with stock up, right? So keep in mind, here's things that have maybe it's a new trend that we're seeing. Just something that we know that we have been things that we preach as coaches or directors. I am going to start with it. It kind of goes right off of what we were just talking about. Teams that build in recovery weekends. So I'm not saying, just saying that our team is off Memorial Day weekend and we are off the next week after that and we're back the following week and we'll see you in 2 weeks, right? You can go do whatever you want for 2 weeks. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. The smartest programs that we see are scheduling rest. They're not reacting to burnout, right? But also in those weeks that they're scheduling rest, they have built-in practices where it's light, it's development focused and forward. And these are teams that you are going to see the players take those steps. And really, what I've always preached is you get better in practice, right? Your games are used as a measuring stick. That's my own personal opinion, and anyone can say they don't agree with that if they'd like to. But I always feel that you improve in practice if you give 100%. And those games you have, that's really your measuring stick, not only against your own teammates, but your competition and things like that.
Yeah, I'll take a stock down here.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about tournaments and not having proper space to warm up. That is going to be my stock down. Constantly this year, we have been to multiple games now. I think we're about 16 games in. There has yet to be a game where we have access to an area or a cage or anything, quite frankly, to warm up before the game. You have that, 10 minutes in between.
I was going to say, don't leave out the fact they tell you when you get on the field,
Right.
Coach, you got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And your team hasn't even really long tossed yet.
Yeah, I mean it's brutal, and then you look at the long toss area, and it's this big,
60 feet.
Yeah, so I think we need to do a better job at, I'm not going to say, hey, let's find an area designated for space, but I think we have to do a better job at getting creative to get these kids in the right mindset to succeed in a game prior to the game. Whether that means bringing heavy balls in, whether that's a J-band routine maybe instead of, long toss or weighted balls, something that's going to get these kids prepared for the game that's upcoming.
So I'll go with the stock down as well, and I'll let you take a stock up after this.
All right.
My stock down is going to be twofold. It's going to be, again, like we've been talking about, overloaded tournament schedules, having a tournament every single weekend, having a little bit of FOMO of the teams that are, so this team's going to play at, tournament XYZ. Our team needs to go do that too, so we're not falling behind. If you're doing this for 11-year-olds, come on, what are we doing? So that's one side of things, and the other is if your team just lost in your youth team, and you're a parent, if you go into the dugout, first off, if you're a parent, you go into the dugout, period. I don't care what age, get out. Don't ever do that. Stop.
Amen.
But if you are going into the dugout after they lost and you're giving your kid a lecture before they even unlace their cleats, yeah, that's probably a stock that we're selling very hard, right? I mean, as a parent, whether it's youth, high school, travel baseballs, just baseball as a whole, right? Lecturing your player or lecturing your child immediately after the game is just it's just nonsense. You don't need to be doing that. It's not going to be productive. It's going to be counterproductive at the end of the day. That is how you get your child to start having a displeasure for the sport, whether it's baseball or any sport. Let them get in the car, talk about positives first. It's not hard. You can always find a positive and really build from there, right? At the end of the day, it is just a game. Build from positivity and then talk about how we can build from the failures.
I completely agree with that. And I will talk about my stock up, and it's kind of a different take on this, but I believe that social media is a massive stock up in the sense of we have a ton of free tools nowadays when it comes to high school athletes. Twitter, you don't have to pay for. Instagram, you don't have to pay for. There's a lot of stuff that I feel the kids are doing nowadays to be seen or to at least get acknowledgement that we haven't seen in the past. And I think that's a big reason, quite frankly, why Michigan baseball is kind of, on the rise. We didn't have that exposure before like we did down south, right? So I think that's a huge stock up. I think the presence of social media in everyday lives for these kids, posting, reposting, tagging coaches, all sorts of stuff, right? I think is a major direction that is only going to continue to go up.
I will go a little bit along the lines of what I want with my stock down, flip it in a way for a stock up. Stock up parents who stay in their lane. Simple as that. You're not coaching from the fence. You are not yelling at your child when he's on deck what he needs to do. You are not overanalyzing stats. You are not reaching out to the coach or the game changer person saying, this was an error or this wasn't an error. Take that away. Say this was a hit. Just cheer and chill. It's that simple. That is the energy that we need more of. I cannot tell you the amount of times that the players that are more successful for a longer period of time have those parents that were sitting way down the foul line, that were sitting in the left field bleachers, that were nowhere near to be found, that were there to just relax, cheer on their son or daughter if it's softball. You'll be doing that soon. And they are just there to enjoy it, and they understand it's a plastic trophy, right? It's a plastic trophy. But they're there to understand that it's just a game, right? And for those parents that sit behind the dugout and are going in telling, little Stevie, make sure you do this your next time at bat, and not letting the coach. Because let's remember, guys, baseball coaches for youth, high school, and summer, more or less are volunteers. They're doing this out of the love of the sport. We both have been coached, and coaches are never paid enough. Typically, you're either breaking even or losing money. You're barely ever making any. And for all of us, believe it or not, we all want the best for every single player that we ever coach. We never want ill intent for any single player. We want to make sure that they're all doing well, and really having the parents that are there to help us push those children in a positive way and stay in their lane. Those are the ones that you see in the long term having a lot more success. All right. Well, that is the market report. Stock up, stock down, baseball style. If you've got your own stock up or stock down prices or picks, hit us up on any of our socials or drop us a message. Might read a few on the next episode. We'd love to, really. And if you got a bold one like stock down coaches who yell with two hands or something to that extent, let us hear it. All right, and that is a wrap on this special Memorial Day edition of Spittin Seeds. Before we go, we just want to take a moment to remind everyone what this weekend is really about.
Yeah, while a lot of us are playing ball outside, grilling out, hanging out in the water if it's warm, we don't want to take for granted the sacrifices that made all this possible, right? Memorial Day is about honoring those who gave their lives in service for this country, and we are, quite frankly, beyond grateful for that. Where would we be without those guys today with our podcast, or where we are in life? So we are extremely grateful for that.
Absolutely, and baseball teaches a lot about teamwork, about commitment, about showing up when it matters, and those are the same values we see in the men and women who have served. So to the families remembering a loved one over this weekend, our thoughts are with you.
Yeah, and to all the players, coaches, and parents out there, through playoff season, start a travel ball, whatever it may be, try to remember to play with, some perspective, right? Honor the game, honor the people you're doing it for. Don't lose sight of, quite frankly, what matters, right? Having fun, playing baseball, the game that you love, and spending it with your family.
And back to the Spittin Seeds types of things, we've got our full burnout post over on Patreon. Avoiding burnout, building a summer that actually lasts. if you want some tools to keep your summer fun focused and healthy, be sure to head on over to our Patreon to check that out.
Yeah, and thanks again for hanging out with us today. Be safe, be present, and enjoy time with your people.
We will catch you next time, but for now, enjoy the holiday and remember why we play. This has been Spittin Seeds. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Cussing grass stains. Dust clouds rising, lineups posted, shades on lawn chairs, parents posted.